Hey, what is up everyone? So, every so often I'll have just someone comment on any random video with just basically a whole rant about everything they don't like about Sea of Thieves. And honestly, it could even be completely unrelated to the video and people just kind of go on these rants on the comments page. Sometimes I'll read through them, sometimes I'll skim it, sometimes I'll just ignore it if it looks too long. But one comment came across my dashboard a few days ago on my History of Sea of Thieves video. Definitely check that out if you haven't already. I thought this might be an interesting one to react to and just kind of give my thoughts on what they had to say. So the premise of this whole comment is that Sea of Thieves is not accessible for new players. So what I'd like to do is break down this comment and give y'all my thoughts. Sea of Thieves is not accessible for new players with all the animation cancel setups, how to man cannons, what each role does, what speed the ship is, what angle is best for the sail to be on the sloop, the brig, the galleon, the range of the cannons, the weight of the different projectiles, and in parentheses with no practice range to improve naval skills, no crosshairs, no DMG numbers, I'm not really sure what that is, how to sword dash, the different speeds and rates the different ships sink at. Basically anything that could help the player learn the combat, movement, or naval requirements of Sea of Thieves is absent. The hold F to interact with being abysmally dated, amongst other age and server problems. So let's break down this paragraph first and then we'll move on to the rest of the comment later. So in terms of animation cancels, that's not something I've ever really used. I know that some people use it, but let's be honest, I feel like it's kind of a niche thing. And I wouldn't say that's a huge majority of people doing that. Setups, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by setups. Are you talking about like the cosmetic presets? Are you talking about like food inventory you should have, that kind of stuff? I don't know what you mean by that. How to man the cannons, they actually do teach you how to do that in the maiden voyage, which to be fair they didn't have when I first started the game, but it came a year later and now we're like 5 years into the game, so that's not really something to complain about. For the last 4 years, they've had a tutorial when anyone ever starts the game that teaches them some of the basics, like how to man the cannon, which that happens when you're heading towards like the Sea of Thieves from the Old Sailor Isle. What each role does, not sure what you mean by roles, but okay, let's move past that. What speed the ship is. See, that's a hard question to answer because the speeds are different for each ship. I'm going to get back to that point in a second, but he also said what angle is best for the sails to be on the sloop, the brig, the galleon. The range of the cannons. I don't know exactly what you mean by range of the cannons. If you're talking about like how far they shoot or something, like that's just something you learn, I guess. Like you just play the game and you'll learn it. The weight of the different projectiles with no practice range to improve naval skills. There is practice range. It's called PvE. Go do one of the the skeleton battles or just something and you can practice this. Or you could just literally just shoot the cannons out while you're at the outpost when you spawn in. It's really not that hard to practice in the game. I'd say it's a lot easier to practice in Sea of Thieves than say a game like Fortnite. Like if you wanted to practice in Fortnite other than the creative mode, which I don't really consider that practicing other than the people that like want to practice like building and stuff. If you want to just like practice being good at the game, you really just have to keep grinding and playing the game, just like doing the actual battle royale modes. And then if you're not that good at it, it can be really frustrating because you might die early on and you might not get as much practice as you could with Sea of Thieves. Whereas at Sea of Thieves, you can just battle like PvE things to fight. You can just practice on an outpost. I spend lots of my time while sailing to different places practicing with my swords or my guns and that kind of stuff. Let's keep looking. What else did he say here? Basically anything that could help the player learn the combat, movement, or naval requirements of Sea of Thieves is absent. And then he also talks about the hold F to interact button, which it's different because I mainly play with controller, so that's not really something for me, but I don't really see an issue with how it is right now. Let me know in the comments below if you play on keyboard and mouse and you think that hold F to interact is not efficient enough for the game to work. For me, I think it's personally fine. I don't really see an issue with like having a button that you interact with. Amongst other age and server problems, I will say, I will give you that one, the game definitely has a lot of server problems. And I think it's gotten better over the last year, because I remember a year ago from now, we used to have issues where like basically data would be completely lost and you could be playing that whole weekend and then everything you've done would just be gone and then they'd compensate you with maybe like 50,000 gold or something. Which for someone like me that doesn't really grind the game out that much, that was cool. I got some free money. but I know it would really suck for those that maybe spent the whole weekend grinding maybe like 1,000,000 gold just doing like Pirate Legend voyages or whatever. So the server problems are real, but I do think they've gotten better. So I want to jump back to kind of just overall what he was talking about with like the game not specifically telling you like different things like range of cannons and the speeds of ships and all that kind of stuff. Part of what's fun about a game and just life in general is learning how to do something on your own and not having to have your hand held as you do every single thing. One of the reasons I don't really like playing single player games that much is because it feels like the first hour I'm playing the game, every 5 seconds they're doing like a tutorial throughout the whole thing where it's like, oh, you press this button right now or else you can't progress with the story. Press it right now. Do it, do it, do it. And I personally find it way more satisfying to just go in the game and just figure out how to play it myself. Maybe that's not for everyone, but it is for me. I'd also say that Sea of Thieves now, it did not when it first came out, like I've mentioned before. I think the Maiden Voyage actually is a really good way of teaching new players how to play the game. It gives you the basics, it shows you how to take out weapons and use the weapons to fight. In terms of like that first battle, you have like the little skeleton that's attached to a tree, which means it's not moving and stuff. You can take your time to learn how to actually use it. It shows you how to look for treasure and dig up treasure. It shows you how to repair your ship, bucket water out. I don't think there's a hole on the ship. That might be one weakness that it has, that it probably should show you how to repair a hole on the ship. But other than that, it also shows you how to pull up the mast and fix that. It shows you how to raise the anchor and get your ship going. And it shows you how to shoot the cannons, or at least it tells you and prompts you to show you how you should shoot the cannons and get like the cannonballs out of the barrel and stuff to be able to shoot the, like, I think there was like a megalodon that pops up and a skeleton ship, and then at the very end the Kraken comes out and grabs the skeleton ship. So honestly, I think Sea of Thieves does do a decent job of teaching new players how to get the basics of the game. Now, when you add in everything else that the game has to offer, there's like all the voyages and stuff that's been added in, everything that's like, even with the new PvP system that's come out recently, that is a lot to teach a new player. And that just comes with the game being 5 years old. So we have 5 years worth of content all being smushed into one game. This is why you'll see with other live service games like Fortnite that I've mentioned previously, they change up their games so often so that people are able to get into the game a lot easier. That's the reason why there's a new map every year or two now. That's the reason why the loot pool changes so often. There is a reason for that stuff, and it's because they want to make sure the game is limited to only have a few things that is easy for players to pick up. While that works for Fortnite and other live service games, that doesn't work for Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves is a world that needs to expand and be able to accommodate all of these different types of content, and I think they've done a good job at that. The reason why the game did not do well when it first came out was because people complained that there wasn't enough content. Now there's so much content in the game, and people complain, well, now it's hard for people to know how to play the game because there's too much to do. Well, this is what you asked for. The other thing is, like, when you're talking about like sword dashing and the speed of ships and that kind of stuff, one of the things about trying to learn something new and trying to really get good at it is by going to different people who are knowledgeable on whatever you're trying to learn and getting information from them. Now, a lot of times you'll see with video games, this can be articles maybe by someone like IGN or something, or it could be YouTube videos like what I make or what other people make. I think one of the fun things with video games is not only teaching yourself how to do some of this stuff. Like, I remember teaching myself how to do sword dash. I thought it was an intentional part of the game, it just made sense to me. But then I saw that people were teaching it online and stuff, and I was like, oh cool, other people also discovered to do this. That's cool that it was kind of something that we discovered as a community, that certain people all around the same time figured out how to do this. I don't think Sea of Thieves needs to hold your hand and teach you every single aspect of the game. It doesn't need to give you like basically an instruction manual for everything in the game, because honestly we live in a day where you could take out your phone if you don't know something, or you want to know something like how to do a sword dash, or what is the speed of the different ships, or which ships are the fastest, or what's the range of the cannons, how to get better with the cannons. You can find videos on all of those things, or articles, or whatever your medium is. I know you can, not only because I make a lot of those videos, but I've also read and watched other people's content on this. So to say the game is not accessible to new players is wrong. but I also don't see a reason why it has to be accessible to new players. Now when I say that, I don't mean like we shouldn't let anyone that's new play the game, no. But I also don't think we should handicap the game because the potential new player might join in 5 years in. Sea of Thieves has now created a really great community. Well, I'll say pretty good. I mean, there's some bad apples in the bunch, but for the most part, it's a pretty good community. And I really don't see a reason why we would want to lessen the game to make it easier for newer players, which would also make it somewhat boring for older players. Like, let's give an example with like the speed of the ship. If they just made all the ships the same speed, that would mean there would be no strategy to the game in terms of like being chased and stuff like that, and it would just make the game very boring. The fact that I was able to learn, I believe it was like a Fuzzy Bond video, it might have been Hitbo, someone made a video when I was playing the game about the different speeds of the different ships, and I remember that and I kept that in my mind, and I use that every time I'm in like a battle where either I'm chasing someone or I'm being chased myself, where I know that if I'm in a sloop, I want to go against the wind. And if I'm in a galleon, I want to go with the wind. And if I'm on the brig, go halfway, with the wind going perpendicular to the ship. Maybe I'm in the minority of this, but I enjoy having these little mechanics in the game that you can use and keep in mind. It kind of is like playing chess or something like that, where there's a lot of strategy with just understand the mechanics of the game. I think I've talked a decent amount about this first paragraph. Let's go ahead and get into the next part. So this commenter also says, also there is no hearing impaired accessibility options at all. Deaf people can't be pirates, I suppose? Let's address this because I think Sea of Thieves is one of the games that I have been really impressed at their accessibility options. Now this particular hearing impaired accessibility option I am not sure about, but you don't need to be able to hear the game in order to play. Yes, hearing is a huge deal, and I do think eventually they will probably add something like what Fortnite again has done. I think one of the cool things with Fortnite is that they have visual indicators of the sound that's going on around you. I don't know if Sea of Thieves has that right now because I wouldn't need that accessibility option, but I do know that Sea of Thieves has done a lot of really impressive stuff for accessibility. I think it was only recently that we saw like with the compass that it will read out what the compass direction is so that blind people can actually play the game and navigate themselves through it. And the same thing happens when you're steering the ship and stuff, where it'll tell you like which direction you're heading, that kind of stuff. And there's other things that they've done. I'll be honest, because I don't use any of these features, I'm not an expert on all the features that are available for people with disabilities. But what I can say is Rare seems to be one of the few companies that has put in a lot of effort for people with disabilities. So I really don't like this part of their argument because I feel like it's just very untrue and a bit nitpicky if you're just going after one thing and not looking at everything they've done for accessibility so far. I think even if you asked Rare themselves, they wouldn't say that they're anywhere close to being done, and there's still tons of work that they can do and that they are doing. Alright, so let's get into this next part. If you're talking about the PvP and the PvP community of Sea of Thieves, there currently are not any in-game tools to help refine your pirating skills and improve. Like I mentioned earlier, there's tons of ways to improve, and honestly PvE is one of those ways that you can practice the game. Another way to practice is actually just going out and fighting people. You want to know the best ways to improve your skills at anything? It's just actually doing it. If you want to get better at playing golf, go actually play golf. If you want to get better at drawing, draw some stuff. You can't just magically get better at something just because the game says, oh hey, do this to be better. That's not how it works. You actually have to put the effort in. Again, why do you need in-game tools to improve your skills? Just play the actual game. One of my favorite ways to just kind of warm up and practice my weapon skills and stuff is just to go to a sea fort and fight some phantoms. Try out different weapons. One of the reasons I started using the blunderbuss recently is because I was practicing with it at sea forts, and then I finally decided, okay, hey, I've done decently with the blunderbuss here, now let's try it in an actual PvP scenario, and I started doing well with that. Obviously I wasn't amazing at first. It's a lot to get used to because I was used to doing a flintlock and sword the whole time. But eventually I got better and better with it. That's just how life is. You have to actually work for something. You have to practice it. And the game doesn't have to provide that for you. That doesn't make it a bad game. Which that leads into their next point when they say Sea of Thieves is a bad game that has gotten some pretty great paint. I love the paint, to be fair. And by paint, I'm pretty sure he just means like the visual aesthetic of the game, which I do agree is amazing. And unfortunately, Rare can't keep up with the needs of their entire community or simply choose to neglect it. I don't know what they mean exactly by that. I feel like my needs are met with the game. I don't know about anyone else's. So I don't really know what kind of needs the community needs or what Rare is neglecting. Especially with Season 8 coming out with the PvP update, because I feel like that was one of the areas where Rare was neglecting was PvP, because there wasn't really much of an update since the Chainshot update, which had come like 2 years prior. So if anyone wants to explain to me what these needs are, definitely let me know in the comments. But honestly, I feel like Sea of Thieves is just a pretty solid game right now. There's nothing that really needs to be fixed. There's no like terrible bugs. Like, it's not like Season 7. Honestly, Season 7 I would have given a lot more credence to this, that the game was being neglected because it was a season where Arena was gone, so the PvP stuff was very lacking, and then you also had all the bugs that were happening that season, and just the delays in general. But then Season 8 comes out, and I really feel like this argument doesn't hold as much water anymore, because you have the role-playing people that are satisfied with their captaincy updates and other stuff. You have the people that were upset for Pirate Legends about them not having a lot of content that got the Legend of the Veil Voyage last year, as well as the new PvP update, which I will include as Pirate Legends since one of the factions is basically completely related to Pirate Legends. And then you also have the PvP crowd that are happy with the Season 8 update, and I would say that the Season 8 update is better than the Arena. However, I will say that I do wish Arena was still an option. And I do think that Rare did not do nearly enough for the Arena, and they could have made that into a really great game mode if they only invested the amount of time it needed. But we also have to consider that time is a very valuable resource, and we only have so much of it. Would you rather them keep updating Arena, which only had a small amount of the player base? I don't know if I necessarily agree with what they said, which was 2%. I think it's a lot higher than that, but I also don't think it was where a majority of players were spending their time. I would much rather have updates like we had with Season 8 with that massive PvP expansion, rather than them try to just continually update a game mode that would be getting less and less engagement. So yes, I do miss Arena, but I can see the bigger picture of that there's content that wouldn't be available in the game now and in the future if Arena was still here. This commenter kind of makes the same point where they say the Hourglass is a good change but does not justify the removal of Arena. I do agree with that. They go on to say, unfortunately, Rare currently has no method of preparing new players on how to handle and prepare themselves for the Hourglass or PvP environment. I'll be honest, I don't think the PvP update in Season 8 is for new players. Yes, new players can participate in it, and there's no like minimum requirement for players to engage with it, but I also don't think it's designed for them. I don't think you're going to have someone that day one is going to go in and should sign up for the PvP thing. If anything, I think it's helped new players even more because they are less likely to spawn in and then just have people attack them while they're playing. Because the people that are really just wanting to go hard at PvP are probably just going to do the new PvP system with the Hourglass rather than what you previously had to do, which is just go search for people. And while I may be more merciful than other people when I see a new player and like a new ship and they don't have anything, other people aren't. And they might just come in and sink them just for the fun of it and ruin their experience. So I actually think the new PvP update in Season 8 has actually helped new players more than it did before that update came out. And then continue on, they say, please note all this information can be found online through plenty of different sources. However, Rare offers no proper learning tools to prepare players for their own game, which is their main problem. We can agree to disagree. I don't think Rare needs to provide all this kind of information. Part of the fun of a game is learning this stuff for yourself. I mentioned it earlier. But then the also fun part about it is finding new communities that you can talk to about the game. And one of the ways that happens is just that initial push of, hey, I need to answer this question, or I'm curious about this subject. Let me look it up. Oh, there's Agent Murden talking about this. There's Fuzzy Bomb talking about this. There's Hitbo talking about this. Let me look at some of their videos. Oh, look, here's a comment section. Oh, they have a Discord. Oh, they stream. Let me hop in and engage with all this stuff. That's a lot of fun for a lot of people. It might not be your thing. That's fine. Do I think Rare can do more to have some of this information in game? Sure, of course they can. but I wouldn't want it to intrude on the experience of the game. If you notice though, if you play Sea of Thieves right now, you can actually press the pause menu and there's a tips menu in there with lots of different topics about the game. This started in Season 7 and then they continue it in Season 8, adding all different topics with little explanations of what they are. What I would like to see is them to expand this tips menu and continue to add information into it. Add stuff for all the voyages, Legend of the Veil. Add stuff about sea forts, about the Siren Shrines and Treasuries. They should expand that menu as much as they can, but I also don't think that would satisfy this person's issue with the game. My opinion is, Sea of Thieves is not a bad game, so that's where I fundamentally disagree with this comment. Obviously, if I thought it was a bad game, I wouldn't be making content on it and making YouTube videos for the last, what has it been, 3 years now? I've been doing this for a while, and I can say that Sea of Thieves is a good game. Does it have its problems? Yes, every game does. Could they do better to help new players understand the game more? Sure, any game can. But do they do enough right now? Yes. Obviously there's new players joining the game all the time. Obviously the game wouldn't be as big as it is now if the game wasn't accessible to new players. We all were new players at one point. We all learned how to play the game. Maybe the person that made this comment didn't learn how to play the game, but I would assume that if they found my video, they probably found other people's videos, they probably have learned the game, even just to know that there's different types of speeds for the ships, or that you should angle the sails differently per the different ships. The fact that you already know that kind of stuff informs me that you do at least understand a decent amount about the game already. So it is accessible to you. So in some ways, you kind of prove against your own point that the game is accessible to new players. I think I talked a lot about this. I would like to say though and clear it up just so that there's no confusion. This is no personal attack against the person that made this comment. I do appreciate this discussion, and the reason I wanted to make this video was because I thought it was an interesting topic to discuss, whether or not Sea of Thieves is accessible to new players. But those are my thoughts on this topic. I just thought this was a comment that kind of just piqued my interest a bit and I wanted to discuss it further. If you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you hit the like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below all your thoughts on this. What do you agree with me on? What do you agree with the commenter on? Do you disagree with either of us on anything? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to have that discussion down there. But if you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you hit the like and subscribe. Until next time, thanks for watching and I'll see y'all later. Bye y'all.